And
Blog Talk
welcome
Radio.
And welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin, and we're expecting a guest, Bob Rainier from Invest Yourself. He has some really good insights into what's going on. And speaking of what's going on, Dr. Lopkin, very interesting, correct?
Yeah, there's actually been some good news on the COVID-19 horizon. Gilead has a medication that's shown very promising results in clinical trials in treating the disease. Texas has already announced that it's going to start reopening, and Starbucks has announced they're going to be reopening stores around the country.
The biggest thing is what is going on with that. I heard that last night about the possible, treatment. That's the key.
Yes, once we get the treatment set and it's actually shown in clinical trials to be effective, that's the ball game. That's going to allow us to reopen.
Yes, I would agree with that. How close is it to actually happening?
Well, it's shown promising results in early clinical trials. There's still more trials to be done, but the FDA is fast-tracking it. So hopefully we'll have results soon.
Yeah, I think
Hi, Jeff.
We have our guest.
Our guest is here, yes.
So
yeah,
why
I've
don't
been
you
here
introduce yourself? It's been many years since you've been on, but I think this is the best opportunity ever for you to be on. Go ahead.
Well, my name is Bob Rainier. I'm from investyourself.com. It's an online company that I started way back in the 90s. It's mainly about stocks, gold, precious metals, and global events. And I've been running it every day ever since.
Fantastic. Now, we talked before you came on, and what I found, and I'd like you to elaborate on this, what I found fascinating is your take on the stock market versus what you think is going to happen in the economy. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Sure. Well, people have been, I'll call it brainwashed, I guess is the right word to use, that the stock market is reflective of the economy, and nothing could be further from the truth, okay? But people are programmed that way. They say, oh, my goodness, the stock market's up, the economy must be booming. No, the stock market can be manipulated and is being manipulated at a level that we have never seen in history. So,
and why is that the case? I mean, why is that?
Well, because
it sounds like a simplistic question, but it's kind of not. Like, why not just let the chips fall where they are?
So much. The stock market took on a new life. If you remember back in the late 90s, we had the tech boom, and
yes,
the NASDAQ was going crazy. And
crazy.
Stocks,
I remember
crazy.
that very well.
Right.
I was a part of it.
Okay. And because the typical pension, years and years ago, you'd go work for a company like DuPont, you'd put in your 30 or 40 years, you'd come out, and you would have a pension. They would pay you until you expired, and that was your retirement. Well, nobody does pensions anymore. They rolled us into 401ks. Now, 401ks, their value is based on the stock market, okay?
Of course,
if the stock market takes a heck of a dump, millions upon millions of people have just had their retirement cut in half or more, okay? So they started focusing on the concept of keeping the markets up at any cost, because that is the backbone of most people's retirement. It's not their Social Security check for $1,200. It's their 401k. And as that type of program continued and grew and built on itself, more and more Wall Street banksters were tying more and more derivatives into the stock market based on the value of the stock market. They were beginning to use stocks as collateral. So now you fast forward 20 years, so much of the U.S. economy is tied to the value of the stock market that people don't understand it. They have no clue. There are trillions of dollars of loans where tranches of stock holdings is what they've used to secure that loan. That's the collateral, okay? So in a very real way, unlike any time in history, when this market takes a really bad dump, lots and lots of things start to unfray. You get counterparty problems across all kinds of lines because the collateral base is gone, boom, boom. So the Feds, they generally, in the past, there'd be an economic downturn. Nobody wants an economic downturn on their watch. So they'd cry to the Feds, and the Feds would cut rates or maybe come out with some kind of a program to help stimulate the economy. And, you throw enough money at it, and sure enough, you could get things to stop from falling, okay? So the economy could stop from falling. Well, now it's just been perverted to the point where it's just in your face. Like, think about this, Jeff. The entire nation is basically shut down. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of restaurants are closed. Many of them are never coming back.
I agree with that.
22 million people.
We have Dr. Eric Lopkin on the as our co-host. Dr. Lopkin, do you agree with that as well, that many restaurants will never open?
Many of the small businesses in general may never reopen, depending on how well they were capitalized. I've actually spoken to a lot of restaurant owners over the past week, and while all of them still intend to reopen, it's going to depend on how much longer they have to stay closed.
Agreed.
And it's also going to depend on. I'm sorry, Jeff. It's also going to depend on when.
Hold on, we do invite our callers to call in at 563-999-3693. 563-999-3693. I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
No, what I was saying is, okay, these, like the doctor was saying, it depends on how much further along they have to remain shut down. But then we have the big boogeyman of people have been so panicked about this thing. When they reopen, you're going to have a big contingency of people that will not go. They just don't want to be around people anymore.
Wait. That is an exceptionally good point. I believe that's so underrated. I believe the best you can do, and I know I'm doom and gloom at times. Dr. Lopkin will attest to that, but I believe you're looking at half the people on a good day would want to come back.
If that. So now you've got that problem.
Do you agree with that?
Actually, I disagree with that, because most of the people I'm talking to, what they miss the most is going out to eat. They can't wait for this to lift so they can storm the restaurants and go eat.
Okay, I hope that is true. Rob,
it'll be interesting to see.
That's true?
Me?
Yes.
No, I don't believe it's true. I've been researching many polls. How many people? 25,000 people polled. Would you get on an airline if they tell you it's okay? 76% said absolutely not. Would you go to restaurants when they're okay to open? 52% said not a chance. Now, on top of the lack of people that don't want to go, they've been frightened. You got to social distance. You know that the government is going to put in place social distancing. So let's suppose you've got a beautiful restaurant. You've got 45 tables. But then they tell you, you know what? It's too crowded. you can only have 18 tables now because they got to be 6 feet apart and this, that, and the other thing. Are they going to be able to survive with those kind of draconian rules? I don't think so.
A couple of things. I just want to interject a couple of things. Number one, I wish I was not feeling this, but I really do. Both of you gentlemen, Dr. Eric Lopkin, Bob Rainier from InvestorSelf.com. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that you have an attrition rate of at least 50% for people going to restaurants. I wish it wasn't true, but I really do believe that. I'm not going to a restaurant. I'm scared. Rob, you're our guest. You comment on this. Don't you think most people are completely freaked out about this virus, and for a long time?
Yeah, they're absolutely freaked out, and we see it in the front lines. My wife owns a small home health care agency, and we've been crushed. These people that we treat, we take care of, we help them around the house. They don't want the girls anywhere near them. I'm not letting nobody in my house. No. Do you think just by the government saying, okay, it's okay now, that they're just going to go, oh, okay, good, now I can have the girls?
That's the point. That's the point. Just because the government says, oh, it's good to go to restaurants. I wish it wasn't true, but I don't see it happening. Right.
So now I'm going to circle back. We go back to the stock market for a minute.
Bob, hang on. Bob, hold on to that thought. We just need to take a quick break and go to our sponsor. So just hang on.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
And we're back, and I'd like to remind our listeners that they can call us in at 563-999-3693. Be part of the conversation. That's 563-999-3693. Okay, Bob, you were saying.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to just circle back to the concept of the stock market being a reflection of the economy. It is not. And how can I prove that? Well, today alone, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 704 points, okay? Nothing's open, all right? If you look at the economic releases that we've had, okay, they tell us that 22 million people have signed up for unemployment insurance over the last 3 weeks. 22 million people need unemployment, okay? And that number is woefully low because, as you know, if you're self-employed or you're a private contractor, you can't even get unemployment. There's probably another...
Bob, I got to interrupt you in that. That's actually incorrect. The stimulus package allowed self-employed and contractors to get unemployment. So self-employed contractors, gig employees, these are all included in those unemployment numbers.
The ones that have gotten through, okay, I'm just saying, watch, the number is woefully inadequate to what's the damage that's really been taken care of. So now, what is the reason that the stock market is up almost 28% from the low that we hit at the end of March? What's the reason for that? As we see the New York Empire manufacturing report come out, down 72, the lowest reading in history. The Dallas one was equally as rotten. Every metric that you've been told about pricing the market is out the window right now. Companies are starting to report earnings, and of course they stink. Now, they stink where January and February weren't even bad months. We didn't really shut things down until about 2 weeks into March. So we're seeing pretty horrific guidance from these companies saying, hey, we're not making any money. Well, if you've been an investor, all of your life you've been told that you've been
on the sector. Different sectors are reporting. That also depends on the sector. Procter & Gamble reported great earnings today. Amazon has reported great earnings. Netflix has reported great earnings. There are parts of the economy that are spurring the stock market to go up.
Well, that's because they're the most heavily weighted. Those 5 FANG stocks account for 22% of the market capital. So and yes, you're absolutely right that in the worst of times, during the Great Depression, gift card companies went higher. People were willing to spend 10 cents to send a card to their friends. There's always something that's going to go up, no matter how bad the situation. But in totality, we're going to see just ridiculous earnings reports, and yet the stock market's going to stay up. So there's no question.
Well, how about the average person? Let's talk about the average person. Here's what I think, and I'm just a lay person. I think it's going to be horrific. I think that for the average Joe that just got laid off, Rob, I'll throw out to you, and then Dr. Lopkin, I think it's going to be a Great Depression.
Yeah, well, I think so, too, at the economic level. Does that mean that the stock market's going to crash? It certainly should. You know, if somebody had told me that the entire nation's going to be shut down and it might take months to open it up, every supply chain is broken all the way around the world. It's not simply a region problem. Like, take a hurricane, okay? Here's a perfect example. I live in Florida. Hurricane comes. Massive damage. We've got no power, no water. There's nothing in the stores. You couldn't buy a bottle of water if you tried. But you know that just 200 miles up the road, inland, you've got meat and chicken and vegetables and water and everything you need. We are not in that situation here. Not only is the entire country locked down, the entire world is locked down. So, just using common sense, you say, wait a minute. If the entire world is locked down and supply chains are breaking left and right, we're starting to have some problem with food production here, there, and the other place. We're starting to have this problem and that problem, plus people's panic and fear and the fact that this bug has not gone away. Explain to me why we're up 28% off the lows. We're up 28% off the lows because the Federal Reserve and the central banks have come out and they have said, we are going to try and make people whole. It wasn't these companies' fault that they're in big trouble, and we're going to try and make them whole.
But that
and
can't
they are
go on
shoveling
forever, correct?
Well, that's what I've been told for all my life. When I went to school for economics, they told me that, they can't just print forever. But we're in it right now, and nobody, if anybody tells you they know exactly how this comes out the other end, they're full of poop, because nobody knows. We've never seen this before.
Dr. Lopkin, your view on this?
Yeah, I think we are going to hit levels that haven't been seen since the Great Depression. And, let's clarify one thing, though. The word depression is being thrown out. It's a reference to what went on in the 30s, but there is no actual economic definition for a depression. It's a recession that we go into. A depression is just, it's so bad that this is what we're calling it. It's going to get, as bad as it was in the 30s in certain areas, but we're not looking at something like we had in the 30s where it went on for years. We're talking about something that's going to go on for definitely months, but things are going to return to normal. They're already talking about, Texas has already said they're going to start reopening. Different areas are going to start to reopen
Dr. Lopkin,
over the next few weeks.
Doesn't this really revolve, though, around the virus? If this virus is unstoppable, we're screwed. Your thoughts, Dr. Lopkin and Rob?
First of all, we know the virus is not unstoppable. We were talking at the top of the show, there's already clinical trials for drugs that look to be successful to treat it. So we know it's not unstoppable. There's also anecdotal evidence about different drugs that have been tried in the field that have had success. Also, while the news media loves to focus on the deaths, it's actually a small percentage of people that actually get it that severely. You're talking about 98%. It's not even that. 98% of people that get it either get a mild case or they get it fairly severe but then recover. So we know the virus is not indestructible. So this is going to end at some point. Do we know exactly when? No, of course not. That's, we're looking at data and we're trying to gauge that. But we're not looking at an open-ended situation.
Can I
Rob,
ask a question here? Can I ask a question? Are you guys under the belief that this popped out of Wuhan, China, from some old hag eating bat soup?
Oh, no, it was no way.
This came out of a lab.
No way. It was a lab.
Okay. Now, hold on a minute.
Hold on. And it was a virus that was, I don't think it was released on purpose, but it was a constructed virus. You cannot design a better virus.
Right. This is a bioweapon. Okay.
Yes, of course. Hello.
There's no question about it. And if you really want to keep going crazy, just keep researching this thing, and you're going to find that there's a whole bunch of strains of this thing. There's a bunch of different strains, and the really nasty, lethal ones have 4 now. They've discovered 4 different ways that this thing mimics HIV, SARS, Ebola, and something else I can't remember off the top of my head. Now, this thing was designed to slowly. It's a perfect bioweapon because, like back in World War I, when they came out with like mustard gas, and it killed a whole bunch of people on the battlefield real fast. Well, everybody found, okay, it's gas, so we're going to put on masks and air canisters and get back in the battle. It killed too quick. This thing is insidious. It can live in you for 2 weeks before you even become symptomatic. You can be spreading it at that time, and then when it starts to kill you, I was just watching the Italian doctor last night from Italy, working on the front lines in Italy where they were really rocked, and he said, I am so scared. I have killed a lot of people because the protocols we're using are incorrect. This thing does not work the way we thought it was. It's taking out the red blood cells, the iron in the red blood cells. People can't get oxygen through their body. It's not really even the lung problem. That's at the end of it. In the beginning of it, this thing is shutting down the ability to carry iron and thus oxygen. It just does so many things.
No, Rob, I'm actually, we'll have Dr. Lopkin chime in. I actually agree with you 1,000%. I do not believe the Chinese did it on purpose, meaning release it. I think it escaped, but it is not something from the wet market. Dr. Lopkin.
No, it's not something from the wet market. We know it came from a Chinese lab. But again, take a look at the actual mortality rate. As insidious as this is, the vast majority of people, and I'm not talking about 60% or 70%, 98% of people recover and get better.
Right.
Well, so
absolutely.
That's something that we have to pay attention to. That tells you that, yes, we can beat this.
I hope so. I think it's really dependent on a vaccine and some other medications. I know, Dr. Lopkin, we're in Connecticut, and the death rate in Hartford is almost 5%. Do you know that?
It's also a very small sample. So
no,
you really have
there's no question
a large
about that.
sample.
All in all,
I tend to think that we're going to find a lot more people are infected with this than people know about.
Oh God, I agree with that 100%.
Yes,
a whole lot.
Yes. We've actually been saying that for a few weeks. But you also have to remember that if we're underestimating the number of people who are infected, that makes the mortality rate lower.
I agreed with that, but I agree with both of you guys. I think that the mortality rate, whatever I think there's many more people infected. I think. Let me just throw one other question. We're kind of ending our podcast here, and I think it's fantastic. Rob, thanks so much for being on. And by the way, you can shout out your company and what you do. Why don't you do that now?
Okay, thank you. Hey, it was great hearing from you guys. We haven't chatted in a long time. My website is investyourself.com. Stop by, get a free newsletter. It comes out twice a week. I don't want your credit card. I don't want your name. Just pop your email address in there. I don't even advertise in the paper. 27 years, I've never put an advertisement in it. So all you're going to get is this lunatic me talking about things. And
awesome.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. Should be reparations with China. All three of us agree that China, it's their fault. So what do we do? I mean, could you say, Rob, we owe you $10 trillion? Guess what? We're not paying you. I'm talking America.
Okay, well, here's the problem, and it's a big problem. We are being told this bug originated in Fort Detrick in Maryland. That's where it was created. That's who created this thing. Now, the Wuhan Level 4 biolab over there, we're being told that it leaked out of there. And everybody wants to believe that. We all want to believe that this was an accident and that nobody would be so evil as to let this thing out. But to be honest with you, I am not 100% convinced at all that that's where this came out of. I don't think there's enough proof of that. And we'd need another whole show to discuss why. Let's put it that way.
Okay, Dr. Lopkin, your thoughts on what Rob just said.
Yeah, I mean, Fort Detrick has a lot of infectious diseases. That's where we do our bio research. For our listeners who are not familiar with Fort Detrick, we're pretty sure the strain that started the pandemic came out of Wuhan. Did they release it on purpose or by accident? I don't know. I have not seen enough evidence either way to make a guess on that one. But we do know that it started in Wuhan.
Okay, we're up against it. First, Dr. Lopkin, when do we get out of this? Your best estimate?
I think we start returning to some semblance of normalcy in June.
Rob?
We're never going to be normal again. There's going to be a bio Patriot Act coming out of this. You're going to have to get forced for vaccination. They're going to make you wear a little star or something that says you're good. Travel's going to be restricted. We're not ever going to be normal, ever. This is a game changer. Some resemblance of normalcy, if it doesn't flare up real heavy in the fall, probably by October, at least some semblance of normalcy.
I would say September. I do believe, Dr. Lopkin, with Rob's assertion that we're never going to be completely normal. Final thoughts, Dr. Lopkin?
Well, I mean, some of the things, quite frankly, that Rob said about, wearing the star, all of this, that's never going to survive the inevitable Pegel challenge. So some of that, even if they try it, it's not going to take place.
Sure it will. The Real ID program is in effect right now. Come October, if you don't have a star on your driver's license, you can't fly in America. That happens this October, 17th.
That happens next October. They pushed it back because of the pandemic.
Okay, but they can do that, and you're
right.
telling me that something that can kill you, they won't make you do? I don't believe that.
Well, we'll have to leave it there because we're just about out of time.
Rob, thanks so much for joining us. Excellent show. Gentlemen, excellent show.
Take care. Thank you.
You can catch us every Friday at blogtalkradio.com/Carnivore Radio. And you can also find our replays at iHeartRadio, Spotify, the Apple Podcasts app, and Google Play. See you then.
The